Everybody, welcome back. Gerbil here. In today's video, I want to talk about the upcoming GL Rebel Leia requirements. Of course, this is 100% speculation, but the writing is on the wall. It's pretty clear. So you can see here real quick that what I want to talk about is briefly, very briefly, why Leia, what are the Rebel requirements, what are the Empire requirements, and a couple others that may be rather surprising to most people, and then what ships I think are going to be required, assuming Capital Games requires a ship as they have for most other GLs. And then I'll just real briefly show you some of my progress to kind of, put my money where my mouth is here, I guess you could say, so to speak. So let's go ahead and jump into this, and just a quick warning, there are some spoilers here. If you have not been keeping up with announcements from Disney, then you may you may be not happy with watching some of this video. So just be aware, not a lot of them, but there are a couple, and I do think at this point most of this will be common knowledge. It's splashed all over YouTube and every fandom site imaginable, but just want to say, could be a spoiler here, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. So Galactic Legends, of course, we have, 2, 4, 6, 7 of them in the game, and Jabba the Hutt was the most recent one. He was announced last summer. I believe he became available in July. I don't remember the exact dates, but as many of you probably know, this is May, the 2023, which is the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. And that is notable because of these 7 GLs, 2 were from the prequels, 1 from Return of the Jedi, 4 from the sequels, and to put I've heard people say it would be a Resistance Rebel Leia. That doesn't actually make a lot of sense to me, especially since that week it was 5 GLs from the sequels. So I think that's not going to happen. And while CG did say that they are not going to be doing GLs in pairs anymore, that the duo Ray Slicker is going to be broken, it's worth observing that Leia she's not a counterpart to Jabba in any sense, other than the fact that their paths did cross at the very end of his life, and she happened to be able to kill him. Now, yeah, she killed him. Okay, that's a big thing, but he was a crime lord syndicate leader. She was the face and leader of the Galactic Rebellion against the Empire. Those are not counterparts. That's like the the CEO of Microsoft and the regional or the local store manager of the Microsoft store in the mall. They are not comparable. So yeah, Leia, Return of the Jedi, 40th anniversary this month, second most visible character throughout the Star Wars franchise, especially in Return of the Jedi. It's gonna happen. Now, like I said, this is going to be over really soon, so I'm going to get into the requirements in just a second, in 40 seconds or less. But it's also worth just noting, all of the promotional content, we have all of these characters, all of them, except for a little Bib Fortuna there in the background. Don't have him yet, but we have all these characters. If we don't get Leia, not only am I going to be shocked and surprised and disappointed, but man, CG is really doing Carrie Fisher wrong here. This would just kind of be, I think, inappropriate to her memory, and especially to a lot of Star Wars fans like myself. They should, this has to happen. Anyway, Rebels. So these are the Rebels, and yes, I did put the Ewoks in there, and of course Phoenix are Rebels, and I did add Saw Gerrera in the bottom right here, because why? Well, we know he's coming to the game. It's official, it's been announced. You can go, it's on March 7th, I think, announcement on the forums. But yeah, so Saw is coming, and of course Saw was a Rebel. So the Rebels are the largest faction in the game by far, and we don't, of course, have a GL there. So yeah, Ewoks, I'm calling them Rebels. They were instrumental in defeating the Empire, of course. So who would it be out of here? Well, it's worth noting that out of the 240-ish characters in the game, only about 5 are used or required for more than 1 GL. So let's just start there and strip out those that are required by Jedi Master Luke. That actually takes out a fair chunk of them, including Princess Leia. Okay, no problem, still got Rolo. But if we then factor in Jedi Knight Luke, and Profundity, because Profundity, let's face it, is basically a ship GL, then we're going to lose Hera, 4 Rogue Ones, and we now lose CLS, Rolo, and Captain Han. Okay, we also doubled down, even though I lost my little X, on Chewie, Lando, and Mon Mothma, so I think tripling up on them is meaning they are definitely not going to be used. So now let's assume that you are a Rebel fan, you've chased the Rebels, you probably already have these characters geared up and ready to go because you have either a Jedi Master or Knight Luke or Profundity. So let's just get rid of all these characters and see what's left, because this, of course, is where the money is and how CG makes decisions, right? The most recent characters, who's Cal, it got all marquees, but Tuskens, we're elevating their faction with the crate raid, and the 3 Tuskens were super undergeared, even though one was required for Lord Vader, I think. The others are just like super undergeared. So now we are elevating the Tuskens from the bottom, least geared, towards the top with a raid, with new Omicrons, with new marquees. This is the way they go, and as we go forward, we will likely see this with other underutilized factions like, I don't know, some Rebels. So this leaves us with not a lot to choose from, actually. OG Rebels, Phoenix, Rogue One leftovers. We've got some recent additions. Marquis, Kara's been there for a while, but she's from Mandalorian, I think, season 1. And then, of course, we still got our Ewoks sitting here, who are still, in my humble opinion, very effective, but getting aged out a bit. Well, anyway, moving right along, these are the characters I think are most likely to be required for a GL Leia, and I will explain why. But here's another spoiler real quick. Regardless whether it turns out to be Kanan or Ahsoka Fulcrum, who's technically not Phoenix, but was, in the Rebel show with Phoenix a lot, it's worth observing that in the upcoming Ahsoka show, Sabine has a prominent role in the live action, as does Hera and Chopper, and we have already seen in Mando Season 3, Zeb. So Phoenix, as Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have said, Ahsoka's show is largely Rebels Season 5. You don't really need to see Rebels to pick up with it, but it is basically Rebels Season 5. And to that, it is widely speculated that Leia is going to have multiple appearances in the show. So there will be many more opportunities for connections, but regardless, I do believe that we're going to have Kanan in lieu of the others, because I think that down the road we may get a journey guide, legendary chase, whatever, for a new Ezra, as well as a new Thrawn, and so the rest of Phoenix I think is going to be required for that. I also think that we will get a Phoenix GAC Omicron very, very soon, perhaps in sync with the Ahsoka release. That's going to elevate the Phoenix squad to be much more viable, just like we've seen with Tuskens and other squads that just got really dated. Most people are sitting on gear 9, 10, 11 Phoenix, so they're money opportunity. All right, so let's strip out all those others. So Akbar is an obvious one. There's just no way around it. Yeah, Akbar is all over. Now, why Hoth Rebel Soldier? Why? Because he is one of the bottom 10 least geared characters in the game, and Leia obviously had a lot of interactions with Rebel soldiers. You can literally see her leading briefings with soldiers in the movie. Stormtrooper Han, of course, rescued her from the Death Star, also very, very undergeared throughout the community. Farm Boy Luke, it's her brother, and she recruited him into the rebellion, basically. Lobot, because he was instrumental in helping Leia and Chewie escape from the Cloud City, get away from Darth Vader and the Empire. He kind of sacrificed himself in the process, I believe. I don't know the full lore history there. But again, he's one of the bottom 10 least geared, which of course means money opportunity for CG. Kanan, because even if we do get an updated Ezra or we get an Omicron or whatever, Kanan is not going to likely appear in Ahsoka because, he's dead at that point, even though we will see his son, so there will be tie-ins there. And I think also Kanan, Kanan was really, really loved. I think probably Hera and Kanan are the two characters that were most adored from that show, so it would make sense. And yes, Kanan had several interactions with Leia, especially in Rebels if you watch. And then of course Fulcrum, who was a Rebel agent. Saw, who has been everywhere, would have been both one of Leia's greatest assets in the rebellion, as well as one of her biggest nemesis, I guess you could say, antagonist, I don't know. His approach to things was quite different than hers. And of course, Ewoks. There's no way around it. Now, Chirpa is worth noting that none of the Rise of Empire requirements for the operations, aka missions, required Chirpa, so that could be something because all 6 of the other Ewoks are required somewhere. But of course, it was Wicket who she encountered at that little log when they beat up those 2 scout troopers. So these are the ones I think are definitely going to happen. Now, Saw, you might be saying, hey, but isn't Cal, isn't Saw a requirement for Cal? And that's right, he is, but only at Gear 12. Which means if you unlock Cal with a Gear 12 Saw, then what's the incentive to go further if you don't really need him? It could be for, I don't know, Relic 5, Relic 7 requirement for GL Leia. Totally makes sense to me. So doubling down, but at different gear levels. So I could definitely 100% and do expect to see that one happen this summer. So how am I doing in this progress? I am currently gearing Hoth Rebel Soldier. I am taking him to Gear 12. I just completed Lobot to Gear 12. I am not putting them to Gear 13, relicking them. No way, not going to happen. But what I am doing is hoarding the gear to do so. I'm trying to fill in all those little squares with the little green pluses, such that when we get the inevitable GL announcement, if they are required, I will click the button and cry. But nonetheless have those characters ready to go. And of course, if they're not required, awesome, I have the gear for somebody else. Of course, if you're watching my channel, you know I adore the Ewoks. They're my favorite faction, so they're all Relic 7 ready to go, but I do expect Wicket to be required at Relic 8 or even 9, sadly. Just totally expect that to happen. And then Phoenix, I am in the process of relicking all of them. I am going to take them all to R1 because Kanan is a decent rebel tank. Jedi tank. You can never go wrong with Jedis, extra Jedis. It's always good to have. Zeb is, I think, sadly, like Chopper, a bit useless at this point in the game, but they are pilots, and the Profundity and Home 1 are still 2 of my favorite fleets, so of course that's decent, but it's a disappointment. Hera, you needed, of course, for another GL, for Profundity. Ezra is, again, he's a Jedi, and he's kind of plug and play. He's a decent attacker, misses a lot, but whatever. And Sabine, of course, is actually really decent with Mandalorians. So it is not a complete waste, but it is a painful endeavor. Now, you might be asking, why no Resistance? Because we are talking about Endor Leia, because we're talking about a Rebel GL. We already have, as I said, 4 from the sequels. We're not likely to get a 5th. That would just be awkward. Yeah, totally awkward. All right, Rebels are, of course, not going to be the only requirements, though, we need for a Leia or a Rebel GL. We would need somebody from the other side, right? Some Empire. So you're probably looking at this going, okay, Gerbil, you've totally lost it. No, absolutely not. Stormtrooper is not needed for anybody. Neither is Imperial Probe Droid, or Tarkin is, but Iden and Mara, you're probably going, what? I will explain those in just a second. I think we're going to get some Marquis. Those Marquis would include Scout Trooper and Bail, of course, who's her adopted father. And yes, I am not joking. Absolutely, I do believe it is possible, though unlikely, that Iden, Mara, Sana, and even Dr. Aphra and Kyle could be required as, requirements for her. Let me explain a couple of these real fast. So Kyle, most people don't realize this, but Kyle comes from the Star Wars Dark Force games, and in the game, the beginning of the game starts just before A New Hope, where Kyle single-handedly infiltrating an Imperial facility on the planet Danuta, I don't know how to say that, to retrieve the Death Star plans. If you were unaware, he's the one who stole them in this game. And the plans would eventually be passed on to who? You guessed it, Leia, who of course, helps lead the fight to blow up the Death Star, I guess. I mean, she gave the briefing, right? Or did she? Or was it? No, it was Mon Mothma who gave the briefing. Whatever. She was there. Mara Jade, yeah, see, it's not canon, but she married her brother, right? She married Luke Skywalker. Not canon, but spoiler, watch Star Wars Mag. She's did a really good video on this one recently. There is some big indications that we may see Mara Jade canonized in live action very, very soon in the Ahsoka show and or possibly Mando Season 4. Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Sana, why? Well, because Sana claimed to have married Han Solo, and Sana and Leia had a number of interactions in the comic series, as did with Dr. Aphra. I mean, there's a couple Dr. Aphra comics featuring Princess Leia front and center on the front of those comics. You're welcome to read them all you like, but Aphra, Sana, and Leia had a number of interactions, doing a lot of heavy work against the Empire and just some side things here and there. Yeah, so I think that those are all highly possible. Why Iden? I didn't make a slide for Iden. Most people do not realize this also, but Iden was at the Battle of Endor, and after the destruction of the Death Star, I don't remember, maybe even before, but in the aftermath of the Battle of the Endor, it would have been after, of course, then, Iden surrendered to the rebels along with her fleet of TIE pilots, whoever, I don't remember what they are, but Iden surrendered and pleaded directly face-to-face with Leia, who eventually acquiesced and allowed them to join the rebellion in defiance of the Empire. So another big direct connection there. Yeah, so I definitely think that those characters are possible. Now, fleets, ships, oh my good lord. Yeah, I'm not joking on this one. If a capital ship is required, and I think one would be, it makes sense. We have major space engagements with Leia all over. Then it makes sense that it's going to be Profundity, because Leia was on board the Profundity at the Battle of Scarif and escaped in that Corvette. I think it's a Corvette. That was, of course, chased down by Darth Vader at the beginning of A New Hope, where she, you know, handed the Death Star plans off to R2-D2. So that is probably the most iconic moment. Yeah, it could be Akbar, but I don't think so. Profundity still is held by a very small number of players as a percentage of the overall community, and so that would be yet another incentive to go that route and Relic 9 your Raddus. But of course, that is a major wall to get Princess, GL, Endor, Leia, whatever. But why would that stop capital games? It absolutely would not. So why TIE Defender? Because, as I just talked about, Iden is the pilot in the game, though not really in lore. Why Kyle's Ravensclaw? Because most people don't care about Ravensclaw. Most people do not have it 7-starred. It is undergeared, so monetization opportunity from CG. Why Phantom? Because Ghost is already required for Profundity, and Phantom is shown, again, spoiler, in the trailer for Ahsoka, piloted by Hera, with Chopper sitting right there. So these all have tie-ins to Leia directly, indirectly, but most of them quite directly. And so if I were to sum it up, this is what I'm expecting presently the Rebel Leia requirements to be, right? So we've got an Admiral, we've got a foot soldier, we've got her knight in shining armor who rescued her, we've got her brother, we've got a undergeared rebel Jedi who sacrificed himself to save his friends, which is exactly what Leia embodies, the kind of person she would have been. We have Tarkin, her absolute nemesis in the Empire. No, it's not Vader, actually, it is Tarkin. Then we had, I mean, he was a political leader. Tarkin was not military. He was political, as is Leia. She was a member of the Senate, politics. We have, of course, stormtroopers who she had countless interactions with. We have Iden, who surrendered to her. 3 potential marquees, Ewoks, of course, and some fleets. This is it. And you know what? For most of the community, this is going to be painful, but yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video, thank you for watching. Give me a like and a thumbs up. Please, 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 pretty please, I'm begging you. And I'll catch you later on the holotables. Take care. Bye-bye.